Suppose, Lord Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time. What would you think it's worth telling that generation?
Mind spins and spirals like the Cogito. I think, therefore, but do I even know? Hume said the sun might not rise in the morning. Patterns ain't proof, just habits we adorn. Russell's teapot floating out in the void. Invisible doubts that can't be destroyed. Belief ain't a bird and the skeptic employs. Question the noise, the cosmos ploys. Skeptic's eyes always peeping the fraud. Truth ain't handed down, it's wrestled from the gods. Doubts my temple, my faith is flawed. Think it through twice before I applaud. Induction wobbles like a table with no leg. Hume's knife cuts leave certainty begging. A billion white swans, blood black renegade. Shatter the mirror, the cracks cascade. Cogito feels strong, but is it really? Thoughts build castles, clouds act silly. Russell's pot spins in the ether so freely. Prove it exists or the claim's too dreamy. Am I the dreamer or the dream in the show? The car wrestled devils, still didn't know. Faith and senses, they play tricks on a low. Truth's a mirage in a desert of woe.
When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Skeptic Philosophy. I am your host, Robert, as always, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Mighty Filbert. We're going to bring in, and he will be talking today about the lovely 80s satanic panic.
Hey,
Filbert,
Robert.
how's it going, man?
I'm going good. How are you?
Fantastic, man. I love this subject. I've been doodling around with kind of studying it a little bit on my own and kind of all of the triggers that were happening and going on in the 80s. So I can't wait to get your take on it, man.
Yeah. There was a lot of satanic panic stuff. I mean, from everything, from the movies we watched, the TV shows we watched, the books we read, the toys we played with, the games we played, whatever, even down to our cleaning supplies, It was just crazy stuff. There were demons everywhere, Robert, everywhere.
Yeah. So what I know about the satanic panic is that it seems to be, there's like these three different categories that I'd categorize it into. It seems like there's this conspiratorial kind of, that there was this occult idea that people were selling. I know one of the big books was Michelle Remembers. I don't know if you know anything about what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And then the school system, but there were a bunch of claims that were going on that people were involved in the cult and they were making sacrifices, they were abusing children, that there's these cabal of high leader government and all. And then there's that side of it. And then I think of it as the second side, which is the pop culture side, right? All of the symbology and everything that was being preached against, that this is of the devil. And then there's kind of the third one. I think of it as how the society saw this and saw the churches and the conspiratorial interaction and how they responded to it. So I kind of look at it as conspiracy, pop culture iconography, and then societarian response is kind of how I parse it out in my head. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of split it up like that too. But, when I first started doing this series about why Gen X walked away, I was wanting to explore just the generational shift, the personal part for me, the cultural part, all of that. I mean, we grew up in a world where church was central to the community. It was part of your identity, everything. And then decades later, we see many of us from our generation who have walked away. And it's like, what made them walk away?
Yeah.
Because, you know, just here in the US, adults identifying as Christian has dropped like 9 percentage points since 2014 and 16 points since 2007. So, and then even more striking was some research suggests that weekly worship among just Gen Xers has fallen to levels similar to some of the younger generations, um, from around 41% in 2020 to the high 20s in more recent surveys. So at that same time, these younger generations like Gen Z and millennials are now attending church more frequently than many expected, but they're outpacing the older adults in in weekly attendance and things like that. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at some of this, and I think some of what is causing this fall, or what caused the initial fall away, is kind of a response to what looked to be conspiratorial kind of misinformation.
Oh,
And then the second part of it was like there's this nerve of oppression that like a group says, no, you can't do this. I was watching the congressional hearing with Dee Snider earlier this morning, and I don't know if you know the hearing that I'm talking about with Dee
oh yeah, I've
Snider.
seen that. Yeah.
Maybe we'll play a little bit of clip of it a little later in the video. But this video, to watch Dee Snider speak before Congress, is absolutely amazing. But this is the kind of personal attacks and all, and he's addressing some of them in the video, that is just trying to curtail his business and his what he's doing, his music and his freedom of speech. And I think some of the response was partly that as to why people were pulling back from the church.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like with us, we were taught to internalize fear, doubt, all that stuff. We were supposed to keep all that in, you
Yeah.
know. And I think the whole satanic panic of especially the 70s, 80s, and 90s was a big part of that, of why we eventually walked away, because it was a moment when fear of all this satanic influence was just amplified far beyond evidence. The
Yeah.
media really drove it. Religious leaders. Um, it wasn't just a headline. It seeped into your homes, your youth groups, your classrooms, your music. It was how a generation learned to approach the world with suspicion. You know,
Yeah.
it taught us to doubt because we saw all the. They were telling us that if you watch this movie or listen to this song, demons were going to enter you. And when we didn't see that happen, we were like, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, and I remember one of the CBS broadcasts, which had the Eagles Nest Ministry that was talking on it, which has now largely been. I don't know what's going on with your mic activation. It is activating really easy. I don't know how you adjust that or anything, but I want to let you know about it if it is something you can do on your side. But I was watching the CBS thing had a Eagles Nest Ministry that they've now pulled. Like it's the guy Phil that I think you have a little bit of clips from Phil and Phil Filbert.
Phil Phillips.
Yeah, or Phil Phillips and another guy.
Phil Phillips.
Yeah, and they went up pulling all that.
Remember the other guys.
Yeah, I can't either. But they completely disassociated themselves with this video, and they wanted to pull all of this down. Now since we're out of the satanic panic, because looking back at the videos now, they're so cringe and they look so bad. But yeah, I was fixing to say something on this one. Was you able to fix anything on your mic? Because the activation, I wish I could do something on my side.
I don't know what's wrong. What it is you're saying is wrong. What is it? Skipping or something?
We're getting a little bit of popping that's going on it, and we just can't. There's like a lot of little.
You know what it probably is? I'm sitting right next to my aquarium.
Oh, okay.
And I've got a blanket over it and everything, but you can still kind of hear it. So that may be
okay. It's
hearing,
all good.
So.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, I think this kind of panic that was going on, they were doing these videos regularly and saying that this is. One of the things, throwing stuff in the fire. They were making the claims on the CBS report that you could throw some of these satanic icons or whatnot, like Dungeons and Dragons dice, in the fire, and that demons were escaping out of them, and this, that, and the other. And then
you could actually see
right.
Yeah.
And then people were actually doing it to see if they could do it, and they weren't seeing anything. So this was more of a denigration of their integrity.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. When they tell you these things and then you don't experience it for yourself, you're like, well, you know, what's the deal here? You know, they lied to
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
This didn't happen.
Absolutely. You had some video or anything that you wanted to show on it? Or you want to hold that for a little later?
I had this, I had this little video montage that I made that it just kind of talked about some of the different things they were saying to us at the time. And it does feature a few clips from that Phil Phillips interview.
Yeah.
And like you said, now they're trying to disassociate themselves with it. But back then they were push it,
all the way.
push it. I mean, they even toured like different churches and things talking about this same stuff. So yeah. But yeah, I got this little montage. If you want to watch it, I'll bring it up
here. Yeah. Let's see here. Whoops. I'm sorry. That's my fault. We're gonna blow this up full screen, or are you okay with it like this, or you want me to put it full screen?
Yeah, whatever you want to do is fine.
Let's go ahead and play it then.
You don't know what Smurfs are? They're not that cute little cuddly thing. They are satanic.
There are some things about Smurfs that we need to look at. First of all, you'll notice that they're depicted as blue with black lips.
That's right. There were claims that because of their blue skin, they were actually zombies, and it represented death or the demonic.
Well, isn't that interesting? And you know what happens to you when you die? You turn blue and your lips turn black.
Pagan or occultic community. And the other community is, of course, the homosexual community.
No, what you're telling me then is that even Smurfs carry a homosexual connotation.
Interestingly enough, they go hand in hand.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the Monster Manual, and it's full of monstrous figures.
The media bombards kids today with messages, many with satanic overtones.
He-Man has more power than Jesus.
Skeletor, the master of the universe.
The fun and games level, referred to as the dabblers. A half belief in Satanism or some serious interest, such as a sudden, bitterly antagonistic attitude.
Satan's not stupid. He understands that kids today are visual, and so he's making a play for excitement, for total involvement of the senses.
Drastic decline in academic performance, a reclusive behavior pattern, and listening exclusively to heavy metal rock music.
One critic of the game also feels that Dungeons & Dragons promotes Satanism.
There's a book called None Dare Call It Witchcraft, who said it's the most cleverly packaged presentation to the occult ever made.
When one or more of these warning signs are evident, you should look further for ritual items such as a pentagram or other satanic symbols.
It's not something I want in our school system, and I do not want it in my home.
A decorative dagger or knife. A personal diary with a black cover, which is called a Book of Shadows, a small, makeshift altar.
A game. Are you going to become a Satan worshiper by playing this game?
No. No more than I am from listening to rock and roll.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic. Let me see if I, there we go.
Yeah, that was something else. But yeah, you know, we had the whole backmasking thing, and they would play, you know, Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven, the one section where he's what was it, he's talking about there are two roads you can go by, but in the long run there's still time to change the path you're on or whatever. If you played that part backwards, it was supposed to say "My Sweet Satan" and, you know, stuff like that. It was crazy. And it's once they tell you what to listen for, of course you heard it.
Yeah.
Where if you're just listening to it on your own, it might sound more like, you know, past the mashed potatoes or something. But when they tell you it's saying "Hail Satan" or "Sweet Satan," and then they play it back a few times, you're like, oh yeah, I guess I do hear that.
Yeah.
You know, it's all mind manipulation bullshit. You know.
Yes. So
they did.
There was this FBI named Kenneth Landing that wrote a huge FBI report that I think came out in 1992, which I'm going to have to put the link up. And I might wind up, let me see if I can pin it or at least just put it in chat. I wanted y'all to look at this FBI report, because what the FBI report was suggesting that was much of law enforcement was even being trained by many of these anti-occult groups and saying, oh, that this is the things that you look for. And there was regular training that was going on, I think, at page 7 on that, which we'll wind up getting into it a little bit, but saying that that all of these kidnappings, everything that was going on in the neighborhoods, that it was all being associated with, to look for the signs of, and they were doing training on law enforcement, right? To look for the occult symbols and what's going on. So now your law enforcement is being inundated with supposed education of and awareness of the occult and how it's coming into neighborhoods, right? But then the FBI report did a kind of a comprehensive review of all these supposed missing people that were kidnapped or in association with the cult. And that's what that report there is about. He ultimately finds that there's no good reason to think that any of this is associative, that we're all doing it, a mass hysteria of associating it all with the occult.
Yeah, and a lot of the reason for that report was what happened with was it Martinsville, Saskatchewan?
The high school or the school, the daycare. Yeah.
Yeah, the little daycare thing. And then also the McMartin trial that happened in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And that trial lasted like 10 years,
Yep.
you know, but yeah, there were all these claims about, you know, ritual abuse. Matter of fact, the guy who wrote Michelle Remembers, his name skips my mind, but the one who wrote that book, he's the one who coined the phrase ritual abuse or satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. And that happened in that book, and everybody started using it after that. But yeah, that was the reason, was because there were these claims that all this abuse was going on, just horrible things. And as the FBI was investigating for these trials, they were like, you know, all these hundreds of claims, there should be some kind of corroborative evidence.
Yeah.
But they found none. There was nothing to back up anything that was said. As a matter of fact, the evidence they found pointed against it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that was just horrible. People lost their jobs. They lost pretty much their lives, you know, because of the stigma from that.
Yeah, I think I'll play a little clip also that I have. It's a YouTube clip, and I'm gonna play that clip here and see what your thoughts are on it. Let me see if I can get it up here. Here we go. This is just a few minutes. We'll play this one. Let me get it blowed up. This is from a recording. Sorry for the music overlay on.
One or two phone calls that I got about this. I said, oh my God, this is terrible. This is horrible. And my early efforts were trying to help police to find the corroborative evidence. And as I told this first detective who I talked to, I said, listen, I've heard of everything you're describing. I've just never heard it all in one case, all in one big package, all put together this way. I had been aware of offenders who murdered people, mutilated their bodies, ate body parts, drank blood, all that kind of stuff. I knew it happened. I just never heard it in quite this form and in quite this way.
After those first one or two calls, there were dozens more. Call after call. Detectives from all over the country reaching out to Ken for help on cases with startling similarities.
As I was trying to figure out what was happening, I began to think, well, if some of this isn't happening, why are these victims alleging it? If it isn't happening, where did they get the details from? If it isn't happening, why is there a similarity to their story? And if it isn't happening, why are there so many intelligent, well-educated professionals who believe that it is happening? Those are all valid, important questions that I didn't immediately know the answer to, so I tended to think if this is what the child's saying, or this is what an adult survivor is describing in hindsight, then there's a good possibility that this may have happened.
This is Kenneth that wrote the FBI report, by the way.
But the evidence he expects to find never turns up. And Ken's view evolves.
One more moment.
It wasn't the lack of corroborative evidence that concerned me. It was the lack of corroborative evidence when there should have been corroborative evidence. That's the important thing. You can't murder 20 people in a house and not leave any evidence behind. I'll give you 7 days to clean it up, and you're not going to clean it.
Anyway, I just wanted to show that was from an interview, and this is Kenneth that actually wrote the FBI report that kind of put it stopped all of this. These claims, and it wanted to do a reform for what law enforcement was being trained on. And it kind of, inside of at least the law enforcement eyes in the 1992 report, it is what brought all of that to a screeching halt, of law enforcement being cross-trained for looking for the occult and this, that, and the other. So very interesting individual to look at is Mr. Kenneth.
Yeah. And the way this all started there in Martinsville, as well as, in California with the McMartin trial, the way it started was with one allegation. All right, one allegation. And the police, when they went to talk to other people who use these daycares or preschools, they would go to the parents and say, we've had an allegation of this, this, and this. And instead of just asking, have you had anything bad happen here, whatever, they're telling them so then the parents, their radar goes up. And next thing you know, you've got allegation after allegation after allegation. And it was just poorly handled in both of those situations. And also in both situations, you find that the social workers that they brought in to talk to the children were basically telling the children what to say.
Yes.
In the McMartin trials, the social worker there, she would have these anatomically correct dolls, and she would point to them and say, did anyone touch you here? Did anyone touch you there? Things like that. And then they would say, well, Billy said that this happened. Now you're just as smart as Billy, aren't you? I mean, you're not dumb,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Kids who at first were saying nothing happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Now they were saying, well, yeah, I don't want to be dumb. Yeah, maybe something did happen. And then they would make up these stories because they wanted to be liked by the adults. It's a common thing.
I think we got as many as 15 of the students in the school said that they saw him levitating, I think is what we wound up getting, right? And then when the prosecutor brought in, he wanted, I don't remember if it was a prosecutor or detective, he wanted to bring in some pictures of people that are not associated. And this is where I believe Chuck Norris was identified in one of the pictures. Or do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So it wound up being brought up in the trial that Chuck Norris was one of the people that was there. Because one of the kids identified him as like, yeah, he was one of them. And then other kids started, and pointing out Chuck Norris. So, yeah, they definitely guided this shrewdly as it digressed, for sure.
Yeah. In the Martinsville trial, there was a police officer that was put on trial with this in association with the daycare. And his name was, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Popovich. And at his trial, they did a lineup, which is something that usually doesn't happen at a trial. That's usually before you get to trial. But they did a lineup with some of the kids and asked them to point out the ones who had been there. And nobody identified Popovich.
Yeah.
Not one of the kids to him. But they pointed to one, and they asked one kid, why did you point to this person over here? Said that person's not even in this area or whatever. He said, well, I liked his purple tie.
Yeah.
He had a purple tie and I liked his tie. Things like that. That's when that was dropped. But with Popovich, that ruined his life.
Yep.
He couldn't go back to being a police officer.
Yep.
He had a nervous breakdown. He was on medication the rest of his life. He said that he couldn't even sit in his living room with his children near him. Said he would have them sit on the other side of the room or something because he didn't want someone to see them through the window or something like that and say, well, he's doing this to his own children.
Yeah.
It just completely ruined him.
Yeah.
And also with the McMartin thing, I think I already said that they were using the anatomically correct dolls and things like that. It was just crazy.
Yeah. So those of y'all just tuning in, we're talking about satanic panic here and kind of the things that kicked it off in the 80s. And I think the best, because a few people have tried to study this subject, and this is how it comes up in the Wikipedia page too. It greatly associates that book from the psychologist, which worked with the therapist, or the lady that later became his wife. They sold 100,000 copies of Michelle Remembers. And in this one, the story is that he's developed this new technique of bringing about memories that are buried from childhood. And she apparently remembers being in some cultic area that her parents and uncles and whatnot were a part of, and that they done cultic rituals and abused her and all as a child and cut up animals, all in this satanic worship. And the story is that she brought about all of these memories through this new developed memory recall process that the therapist was doing, right? And wrote a book. It was highly successful, and then other people started making claims in the same way that that they saw something too that looks like the occult. And she also in the book made the claim that the Church of Satan had been around before the Church of Christ, right before Christianity. That it goes back that far, and that there's this satanic cultic following, and that it's hid among society. And we get these almost, I don't want to say QAnon, but these QAnon-like characters that are coming forth and regularly say, yes, yes, confirmation of. And then before you know it, a firestorm of paranoia has struck across the land. And now they're finding symbols in He-Man, they're finding symbols in all of our pop culture stuff and everything, that this is the people that are in the cult.
Yeah. But not only that, in that Michelle Remembers book, she also talked about after she was an adult and said that she had been kidnapped for like 2 weeks, and all these horrible things were happening to her from this satanic group. And the thing is they checked the date she put against her work record. She was at work. She clocked in, everything was there, did everything. That they were easily able to debunk her story just by checking up on her records and things.
Yeah.
And nothing matched what she said. It was kind of like the Mike Warnke thing in the Satan Cellar.
Yeah.
There was nothing that could corroborate any of the claims he made.
Yeah.
Well,
2 books came out later that directly refuted it. One was a 15 or 20-year investigation on the claims of that. Did this one come out somewhere around 2000? I was reading that even interviewed like parents and uncles and said that there was a tragic event that happened at the age of 5, that she saw a vehicle that was in a car crash, and that someone was badly mutilated in there, and that their intestines were hanging out, and that this was a part of why she was going to therapy or whatnot when she was younger, that she had met with a therapist, that it had nothing to do with anything else. So a deep look into many of the claims that she had made in the book, and the individual, the therapist, they're just completely debunked. Then we had, they were asking for the tapes of the therapy recording for some of this because they had opened investigations on it. So now they got it. It's supposed to be unsealed. Now you have claims of people who are abusing and molesting children and whatnot. So now they've called for these tapes that the therapist had of the interviews, and the tapes, they're not yielding what was allegedly, what was in the book. So it was all a bunch of BS.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the Martinsville thing. These kids, they were talking. Somebody had mentioned, one kid had mentioned this Satan church, that was like out in the boondocks, and the police would pick them up from school and take them out to this house, and they would do horrible things to them there. Said there was a cage, and that they would lift the kids up in this cage and poke at them and do horrible things to them. And, but they said there was a freezer that had, human body parts in it, that they would kill the kids and put their body parts in this freezer, butcher them and things like this. And, it was just crazy. What had happened was the police had went out after someone had mentioned the church, and they found this blue building, and they said, that must be the place, excuse me, I'm sorry. And they went to this place, and they looked around, and they saw these sheep skulls around the property, and went inside and took pictures of what was inside. And then they would show the pictures to these kids, and they said, yeah, they put us in that freezer, or they would put kids in that freezer after they butchered them. And there's a cage. And that's where they were getting their stories based on the pictures of the things they saw inside the house.
Yep.
And it was just crazy. It turned out that one of the policemen who saw the sheep skulls around the property, made up this story about it being a group called the Brotherhood of the Ram. That was the name of the group. He named it everything else. And they were taking this as like gospel, and he, with the pictures and things like that. And then it turned out this belonged to a guy who raised sheep. This was the building where he would butcher the sheep.
Yeah.
The cage that he had in there was for chicklings. So the skulls, he, instead of getting rid of them the way he should have, he just threw them out in the yard, you know, after he slaughtered the sheep. And the freezer, the only thing they found in the freezer was you know, lamb chops and shit. You know, it was just crazy. But yeah, they showed these pictures of the kids, and that's where it came from. And it was, you know, once all this came out, that the charges against all the rest of the adults there were dismissed. No one else was ever tried for it.
Yeah.
You know, after Popovich, that was the end.
Well, you know? And they had so many people, though, that were strung out and made to look bad in the front of cities. So many allegations that were coming forward now off of this that were just, they were based in absolutely nothing because of so many procedures that were done wrong and everything else. And this is why I think the FBI felt like that they had to do a complete comprehensive review of all these satanic cases. And they put a special agent in charge in it to look at it and see if there needed to be something of a law enforcement reform. And I think that is in large part what happened. And that after the 1992 report of this, which I don't know how long the process of the investigation was, but after the 1992 report, my understanding is that there was this huge law enforcement reform that tried to purge all this external training out. And also there's a reform in like not influencing the people that you're taking testimony from, because they understood how much they were leading these people and the processes that they were doing that was leading them. So very interesting stuff. I'm gonna see if I can pull a page up here in a second. Go ahead and say what you was going to say.
Yeah, I think I was going to say something. I can't remember now what it was. But no, it was just this whole case, you know, with that was just ridiculous. And like you said, it ruined so many people's lives because no matter what the court said, once that allegation is made, you know, people are going to, you know, see you as shady and not have anything to do with you. And just think, well, if this many kids said something had to happen.
Yep.
You know, whether they could prove it or not, something had to happen.
So I'm going to pull this up and see what we can see on this. Let me get the page back up. I wanted y'all to see this report. This is the report that kind of finally ended all this from the Kenneth gentleman, the 1992 Investigation Guide to Allegations of Ritual Child Abuse. And this wind up being spread all over. I wanted to see some of the subjects in here. We're going to go to law enforcement training on page 7. I'm going to go to page 7. I want you to see what he wound up writing in this report about the subject. And again, this is the individual that we wound up getting interviewed earlier. The typical conference, he's talking about training conferences for law enforcement that were happening all across the United States. And he said the typical conference runs for 1 hour to 3 days, and many of them including the same presenters and instructors. A wide variety of topics are usually discussed during the training, either as individuals, presenters by different instructors, or groups together by one or more instructors. Typical topics covered: historical overview of Satanism, which there is no historical. They have fabricated this. I'll just tell you in advance. Witchcraft and paganism from ancient to modern times. Nature and influence of fantasy role-playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons. Lyrics, symbolism, and influence of rock and roll, heavy metal, and black metal music. Teenage stoner gangs, their symbols and their vandalism. It goes on and on. I think this is hilarious, though, to see Dungeons and Dragons in an FBI report. I think is absolutely hilarious, but it was one of the games and one of the icons that were being targeted in training that was going to law enforcement to look for these things, look for this. And people were being targeted specifically that were playing Dungeons and Dragons or listening to certain rock and roll music. I didn't know how much you had read that report or you know anything about that report. Are you familiar with it?
I just heard it mentioned in a few interviews and things. But did you notice that one said teenage suicide by adolescents dabbling in the occult?
Yes, I did see that.
And that was what come up in that montage talking about the dabblers.
Yeah, the dabblers.
You know? And there was, you remember they took Ozzy Osbourne to court and Judas Priest, you know, saying that their songs resulted in the self-harm or whatever of the suicide of a couple of teenagers. And it went to court. They had to sit through testimony. In Judas Priest's case, they had to sit there and listen to them play their song backwards, to try to look for any of these references. It was just horrible what happened to the kids. But you can't say the music had anything to do with what they were going through in their own personal lives.
Yeah.
Especially like Suicide Solution, the song they brought up from Ozzy, that was a song against alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with any encouraging anyone to hurt themselves or anything.
Yeah, and Dee Snider brought up and we'll pull up, I just want y'all to see just a few moments of the report with Dee Snider when he spoke before the Congress. Tipper Gore, which is mentioned in this video, this is actually Al Gore's wife, which she was a big church-going individual, and I forget the name of they're not Mormon, are they?
It's like PMRS or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, but she was a part of an organization that they were trying to get like rock and roll and demonic stuff. They were heavily working to try to suppress and get it out of school systems and whatnot.
Yeah, they were the ones who came up with the warning label.
Yes, absolutely.
That came out on the CDs and things later.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get this one up here. Well, yep, there we go. We're going to have this one straight off of C-SPAN. So complete public record here. Let's see if we can get it loaded up here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience for waiting so long.
Thank you, Senator. Great privilege to be with you all.
Thank you. Next we have Mr. Dee Snider, the Twisted Sister Free Fall Talent Group.
What? Not of the Twisted Sister.
Yep. That's the
At least it gave Congress a laugh. This will move rather quickly. I just wanted y'all to see him come in like a boss.
Hey, no makeup though. That's different.
Yeah.
Take the Saturday.
He had it in his back pocket.
Yeah.
We're not going to take my money.
Love it.
Mr. Snider, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here. I don't know if it's morning or afternoon. I'll say both. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Dee Snider. That's S-N-I-D-E-R. I have been asked to come here to present my views on, quote, the subject of the content of certain sound recordings and suggestions that recording packages be labeled to provide a warning to prospective purchasers of sexually explicit or other potentially offensive content, unquote. Before I get into that, I'd like to tell the committee a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years old, I'm married, I have a 3-year-old son. I was born and raised a Christian, and I still adhere to those principles. Believe it or not, I do not drink, I do not smoke, and I do not do drugs. I do play in and write the songs for a rock and roll band named Twisted Sister that is classified as heavy metal. And I pride myself on writing songs that are consistent with my above-mentioned beliefs. There are many facets to this complex issue, and time does not permit me to address all of them. However, my feelings are expressed for the most part by the August 8th, 1985 letter to the Parents Music Resource Center from Mr. Stanley Gordikoff, President of the Recording Industry Association of America. This letter was a formal response to the PMRC's petition of the RIAA. The only part of this document I do not support is Mr. Gordikoff's unnecessary and unfortunate decision to agree to a so-called generic label on some selected records. In my opinion, this should be retracted. Since I seem to be the only person addressing this committee today who has been a direct target of accusations from the presumably responsible PMRC, I would like to use this occasion to speak on a more personal note and show just how unfair the whole concept of lyrical interpretation and judgment can be, and how many times this can amount to little more than character assassination. I have taken the liberty of distributing to you material and lyrics pertaining to these accusations. There were 3 attacks in particular which I would like to address. Accusation number 1. This attack was contained in an article written by Tipper Gore, which was given the form of a full page in my hometown newspaper on Long Island. In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade, had lyrics encouraging sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. The lyrics she quoted have absolutely nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore, the reader of this article is led to believe that the 3 lines she quotes go together in the song, when, as you can see from reading the lyrics, the first 2 lines she cites are an edited phrase from the 2nd verse, and the 3rd line is a misquote of a line from the chorus. That the writer could misquote me is curious, since we make it a point to print all our lyrics on the inner sleeve of every album. As the creator of Under the Blade, I can say categorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and rape in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore.
I just wanted to play that part of it. That I got to tell you, this is now in the Library of Congress. To see Dee Snider talk before Congress and this be recorded for all times in the Library of Congress is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Does the microphone sound better now?
It sounds fantastic now. Yeah, I think you got it completely fixed there.
It turned out I had the wrong mic selected. I had this one, and I should have had this one. So, but hopefully that'll fix that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds way better. Good
deal. Good deal. But yeah, another guy who testified in those hearings was John Denver, which really blew my mind. He came in and really took up for the music at the time and everything. And you got to look for that. That's a great one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, Tipper Gore started this whole thing. And as I said, eventually they couldn't get the music, removed or stopped. So they just put those warning labels on them, which, did the complete opposite of what they wanted. After they added the warning labels, sales went through the roof. Even Paul Stanley. Yeah, Paul Stanley from KISS put out a comment saying, "Thank you so much. You've helped us so much with this," some interview I heard with him years ago, but yeah, that was some crazy stuff, because I don't know. They always wanted to blame the things that we appreciated. And the truth about the music we were listening to was that it was teaching us to not just buy the bullshit we're being fed. It was teaching us to question authority, and it was teaching us to, that our doubts were okay, and adults didn't want that at that time.
Yeah.
Especially these people in government and church leadership, because once you start questioning their authority, things go to hell for them. But that's where all this even came from.
Yeah, I think this is why a lot of kids, especially teenagers getting into their older years, they started realizing that there was something of a battle between the industry of rock and roll music and the kind of church leadership and whatnot, and they had clearly picked their side on it. And I don't know if this was a big part of the number changes after for church attendance in the kind of coming into the 90s, when we start seeing after the 80s and a part in the late 80s of the fall away from the church. But if I had to guess, a lot of it is a recognition from, I don't know how many teenagers would watch somebody like Dee Snider speak before Congress, but I got to tell you, as a teenager watching Dee Snider come in there and have this conversation and be this straightforward, he's got to look like an absolute superstar, dude, like an absolute superstar to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I did a video a while back called The Devil Wore Spandex. And I was talking about the war, when MTV started, between MTV and the church, and how the church was trying to get MTV banned and removed from the air. And it was a lot of these same arguments and everything about the videos and the imagery in the videos, And as that same interview with Paul Stanley, as he said, the biggest thing going is, at that time, especially with Satanism and sex. He says, of course, we're going to capitalize on those things, and talk about it in our songs and put it in our videos. It's sold, and, but yeah, they get accused of Satanism. And for most of them, it was just that. It was just a show,
Yeah.
And Satanism, any version
almost of Satanism that I've read is nothing at all like the media makes it sound.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know what made the Michelle guy or lady back off from the book, and she was like doing some book tours and whatnot. Was Anton LaVey actually had a lawyer write up a letter because of the damning allegations that she made about the Church of Satan, right? And Anton LaVey had that name officially. He wrote a letter to her and to the therapist, starts with a P something, I can't think of his name, that wrote that book, and basically threatened liability and said that, you know, that your claim inside of this section of the book, that the Church of Satan was responsible for X, X, and X, that this is liable, and that, you know, that we're going to sue you. And I don't know how much extra heat but keep in mind, Anton LaVey's whole thing was the more publicity he gets, no matter how bad it is, the better it is for you.
No
right?
such thing as bad publicity, right?
Right. All the way. So a lot of this was good, but then I think maybe when it started coming into death threats and all of this stuff, maybe a little bit more got hedged there, and there was a little bit more pushback against writers that were making these kind of claims.
Oh yeah. And you know, I mentioned earlier about Mike Warnke. He was a Christian comedian who claimed to be a former satanic high priest, and he wrote this book called The Satan Seller, detailing all his adventures with Satan. And it was the things he put in that were so easily debunked. Like I said, he was claiming that he was doing some of this stuff while he was in like high school, and you know that he was all gothic and he had, you know, long hair, and he ended up having to quit school. And it turned out the opposite was true. When they interviewed some of his friends from his hometown, they're like, no, he was in Campus Crusade for Christ back then. You know, because he claimed he didn't become a Christian until Vietnam, you know. And actually they were like, no, when he was in college, before he went, you know, he was, like I said, Campus Crusade for Christ. He was witnessing to people. He was talking about wanting to be a preacher, things. So
I think I watched you talk about this in a video.
You might have. I bring it up a lot. I don't have much
Yeah.
material, so I go back a lot.
No, I hear you.
No, but also in the Satan Seller, he talked about, you know, going on this weekend bench. He went to some kind of, he said, satanic conference in 1965 in San Francisco, and claimed that he spent the weekend hanging out with Charles Manson, who was also there, and all this other stuff. And they met Anton LaVey, and he wasn't, you know, too impressed with LaVey and all this stuff. And then later on, it's like, well, okay, but here's the thing. Charles Manson was in jail in 1960. He was still in prison. He didn't get out till 67, you know, the Summer of Love. That's when he started his whole thing with the Manson family and everything. And, you know, of course, all that culminated in 69, but still, he wasn't even there. And Anton LaVey said, I've never met Mike Warnke. I have no idea who this guy is, you know? So it was, like I said, easily debunked, just, you know, by talking to a few people. And so once that came out, because he was helping police, he had this whole ministry organization where they were going to catch child predators and things like this who were supposedly kidnapping children and sacrificing them to Beelzebub and all this bullshit. And nothing he said was true, but he was the expert that the police were going to find out how to deal with these things and how to investigate these kinds of crimes that didn't exist except in Mike Warnke's head.
And he didn't have the background history inside of the occult that he said he did to start with. So it was just all, it's almost like the show Psych, but except with demonology, right? He's pretending as if he has a history that doesn't exist to start with, and has created an imaginary enemy to try to educate officers about. The whole thing is, it is embarrassing gullibility of law enforcement, and just probably a product of the 60s and 70s gullibility to the church, and they're kind of toeing the line. So now all these officers have grown up, and they're hearing about something that they've heard temptations of the devil and this, that, and the other since the 60s and 70s. And now they're reaching a point where, oh yes, now our culture is dramatically and quickly changing, and you can easily have this kind of fear tactics. What I thought was really interesting is when the detective wrote about from 1 to 3 day training things. So for the officers. So you could have 3 days of basically presenters telling you, this is what you look for. This is what Satanism is. This is the kind of things they do. And look for blood in this way, and look for it. 3 days doing this to massive amounts of law enforcement is tantamount to a brainwashing of law enforcement to look for specific things. It's absolutely insane, man.
Yeah, there was a video of a guy. He was supposedly a former homicide detective or something, and not J. Warner Wallace. This was before him, but I think the videos are on YouTube as well, where he was talking about what happened in some of these ritual sacrifices and things, and they had like a model there, and he was demonstrating how they would hold the knife and how they would lay her on the altar and all this other. It was just crazy stuff. But yeah, with the whole, all this goes back to one thing: control through fear. You know, the entire satanic panic, that's what it was about. It was just another way to control people. That's been the church's play ever since it began. You know, from the first time Jesus mentioned hell, you know, because he was the first one to really talk about hell and things like that. You know, he started that whole thing. But yeah, ever since then, it's been controlled through fear. You know, and what happened with like the McMartins and Martinsville and a lot of these other things, we need to save our children. That's the cry: save the children, save the children. You hear that over and over again, because if that's who they're targeting, you're going to get parents riled up, and they're going to be right on board with you to suppress all this shit. You know, I remember my mom getting something from the church, some kind of flyer from the church talking about Procter and Gamble, and how the leader of Procter and Gamble went on the Donahue show and claimed that he was a Satanist and all his money went to satanic causes and things like this, and how much he hated God, and he didn't care if Christians knew that he was a Satanist or not, because what were they going to do about it? You know, he's a billionaire. They can't touch him. All this stuff. And they had the whole, on the back of it was a list of Procter and Gamble products. They were telling us, do not buy this, boycott Procter and Gamble. Well, the thing is, that interview never happened. And then a few years later, she got the same flyer, but this time instead of the Donahue show, it was the Geraldo show. And then I remember even in the 90s where it came out, he was supposedly on the Montel Jordan show and the Ricky Lake show. It was always a different talk show, but the same thing. That was the only thing that changed, was what was the year that he supposedly said these things and the talk show he was on. You know? And I remember my mom looking through the list, and she said, well, hell, I use everything on here. And she said, I am not giving up my Charmin for some generic brand because I want soft toilet paper. So she said, I guess we're devil worshipers now.
Well, and I think that they pushed too hard is where we wound up getting a lot of people that were done with a lot of this fundamentalism. But what's interesting is when you were mentioning shows, Oprah Winfrey had the Michelle Remembers lady and another lady that wrote a book, both on the shows, and never pushed back, not a single time, as to the authenticity of the claims. She never made any kind of pushback on it. And this is something Oprah Winfrey was huge. So we're talking about millions of people watching this and watching these claims. And now we have all these scared and panicky mothers. Oh my God. And this and that symbol. So now they're wanting to look through their kids' drawers and, oh, well, looks, Timmy got this jacket that has flames on it, you know? So there's all this fear that's perpetuated. But yeah.
Yeah, and of course Oprah didn't push back. She was getting ratings from this shit. She didn't want them to turn out to be phony. She wanted people to believe it, you know? Yeah, it's like I said, what's so better than sex and Satanism, you know? And then when you get to mix them with this ritual abuse stuff, you know, of course, yeah.
But he called it out well with Tipper Gore that what's really happening is the only abuse, the only sexuality, the only thing that's going on inside of the song is happening in her head. And the truth of this is that all of these people that are seeing these symbols and seeing this evil demonic thing, it is all happening in their head. And it is why you don't see atheists get demon possessed, right? Because they don't hold the ideal of it. You see Christians that get possessed by demons. This is something that they have this this image, this agency. They have this inside of their head, and they're easily able to be manipulated with this agency and being told what is happening here. We're going to go a few more minutes, let you get a few more words in, and we're going to open a chat up here and see if we got some people wanting to come in.
Okay. Yeah. This whole thing, like we said, the Michelle remembers all that. This in a lot of this, as far as the movies and things went, started with like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and things like that. And there was such a backlash from that. Then of course here comes the church saying, "Oh, they have all these Satan references and things like that." You mentioned what was it you said a while ago about the ones who were getting possessed were Christians, which is supposed to be impossible according to the scripture, because you're supposed to be protected from all that. You've got wee little Jesus living in your heart now, and he's going to kick those demons out. There's no room for anybody else in there. But this was, we're told this when it comes to spiritual warfare. If you're a Christian, you're protected from these spiritual forces, and then we're told that Christians can get possessed. It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's the crux of it. You have to believe it for it to be real to you, because we know that it doesn't exist mind dependent. It's a mind independent. It's a mind dependent thing. Q&A is open. We're going to take any questions, and anybody wants to come in here, you should have a link in here posted now. Let's see if I can.
Any questions, comments, snide remarks, anything like that. We're open to it all. Yeah.
If you want to put Q&A next to it to get it a quicker, easier response, that'd be great. But we'd love to have somebody coming in here, especially someone that lived through the 80s and have some fond memories of some of this and some of the church preachings against it or whatnot. But that or otherwise, please leave your comments in the side. We'll address them or come on in. It is open.
Yeah, I saw Tilting Windmill saying that loved the Phil Donahue show, was totally addicted to it in college. Yeah, I feel you. We watch that all the time. Love Phil Donahue. And but Geraldo, a bunch of these were doing all these little episodes about Satanism and what was they had supposed Satanists on there. Well, which one was it that had Anton LaVey's daughter? Was it Geraldo or was it someone else?
I think it was Geraldo.
Was it
I'm not
Geraldo?
positive. I know that Anton LaVey's daughter is the one that refuted any claims that he had a deathbed recantation.
Right.
Because immediately after he passed away, there were these claims that were coming about that he had the deathbed recantation and that he come to the Lord and all, which it happens. Yeah, right. But and she completely refuted it, said she was present, she was there. That's absolutely not true.
Yeah, because she said he had pulmonary edema, and said by the time that he was on his deathbed, whatever, he couldn't even speak. His lungs were so filled with fluid he couldn't speak. So he didn't say shit. But anyway,
Kurt, how's it going, man? I like your new image here, man.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah. I'm going with the wizard.
Heck yeah.
There you go. Just for the Satanic Panic episode, right?
This is my Final Fantasy 1 Red Mage look. So.
Okay, all right.
Well, but remember, Pokemon was a huge problem for these people at the same time, right? They thought it was demonic as well, and had all that stuff going on. But for me, the big problem fundamentally is that in the United States, especially in the 70s and 80s and 90s, the idea that God revealed truth to people was just like the normal thing that people thought. And so epistemologically, the whole nation was totally with the idea that you could just get special revelation from God about something that was true.
Yeah. Exactly. Commonplace ideology. We're going to bring Sam in here too. Sam, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's happening? Check.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah, you sound great.
Great. Okay. Hello.
Howdy.
Yeah, I lived through the 80s.
Yeah, I knew you did. I was curious of your take on this, man.
Yeah.
You were already an adult by the 80s,
huh? Yeah, well, I was in the service through the 80s, most of the 80s.
Okay.
So I'm a boomer. I was born in the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, I went through that. I was playing D&D as a kid. and I played it was a game called Boot Hill. It was a Western style game that was before D&D, and through comic books and the Pulp Fiction novels led me to D&D, and that's how I started playing it,
Yeah.
through the comic books.
Yeah. So how many people did you ritually sacrifice because of D&D? Did it turn you into a full-bred Satanist priest?
There's no real figures that I can.
I'm just saying. I read the Jack Chick tract, and apparently, according to that, it's supposed to lead to that. So,
Well, there were figures, but they're gone. Somebody kept figures because they were, it was all paper and pencil back then.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
So there was data, but it's all gone now. It's all gone. But yeah, I lived through that, and I was playing D&D, and I was introduced through it through Boy Scouts too, because there were kids in Boy Scouts that were playing it as well.
Oh wow!
And they were playing it, and they introduced it to everybody, and we were playing it as kids. So it was just a game. But in school, other kids thought they were accusing us of being like devil worshippers and Satan worshippers and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I got a bad rap as a kid for being a devil worshiper, but there's no evidence. It's just kind of a thing.
Do any of y'all remember any local claims of a groups or occults being in your area?
Oh yeah.
Well, I was in Southern California during the McMartin case, so
you had
that was in my area.
Yeah, you had them everywhere then. Yeah. I was living in West Texas through most of my more formidable years, and Odessa supposedly had this cave. There was a news story on it where there were supposed sacrifices being made. There were animal body parts and things like that. And on the top of the cave, someone had spray painted "Gateway to Hell" or something like that. It was just crazy. But that was the thing that got the closest to where I lived. But yeah, and it turned out there was like nothing. No proof of anything except people just going in there and vandalizing it and kids hanging out and partying. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one spot in the city where I live, which is small and outside of any major city, but there's a spot down a dirt road that's kind of right outside of the city that had, and I don't remember what the animals were, but there were 2 or 3 skulls that were all in one pile there. And I remember seeing it down there in the dirt alley, and I saw it before, like all the claims started going around that some Satanists had made sacrifices there, this, that, and the other. And but this claim started going around. I was young. I was real small, but I remember my brother was a little older than me, and we walked or rode our bikes everywhere, all throughout the town. And I remember when law enforcement got into it, and that they wanted to come and test it. They wanted to come and look at the animal bones, see if there was any stab wounds or anything, or if this really had anything to do with sacrifices. And looking back now, this is just, oh my God, this is just a few animals that are dead in one spot. As to why they were there, or if some bigger cat or something drug them there, I have no idea. But we're talking about on a dirt alley, kind of a dead end dirt alley in that area, that we got 3 animals in a pile. And now there's all of this kind of, sacrifices have to be going on here is what's happening.
Yeah. Hey, Kirk, can I ask you something? You said you were in Southern California at the time of the McMartin trial. Do you remember any of the protests and the people on the streets yelling "Save our children" and things like that? Do you remember any of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was all over. And it was on the news every single night for months at a time.
Yeah, and that trial went on for, like I said, I think a decade.
Because there was always a new kid with a new allegation, and they were feeding all this stuff to the reporters all the time. There was a media circus around Ray Bucky's house all the time. Like that guy just...
Oh, it did.
That's just horrific what happened to that guy. He apparently never really did anything at all except be not very successful.
It destroyed his whole family. It was horrible.
Yeah.
There was a movie made about that with Woods, James Woods, and I can't remember the guy's name.
James Woods, I think, was one of the attorneys.
He played, this guy played Elliot in E.T., but he was an adult by then. He played Ray Bucky. Why can't I remember that guy's name? But you know who I'm talking about. He looks exactly the same as he did when he played Elliot. It's just like they put his little kid head on an adult's body.
True.
You know, kind of like Christina Ricci, same thing. But
I mean, going back to the PMRC hearings with Dee Snider, like it kind of reminded me of something that I'd kind of forgotten. Like I was sort of in the later half of the 80s when that all started, right? And so I'd been a huge fan of Queen, and of course a lot of their lyrics got in trouble. Like the Jazz album had that poster that had topless women in it, and that was like one of the big things that the PMRC were really, really upset about, was all this like explicit sexual imagery, which is women without tops on, right?
Yeah, it's okay for Sylvester Stallone to go around without a shirt on, but you know,
exactly.
once women do it, then you know, can't handle boobies. You know, it's horrible.
But that record actually was one of the first chinks in my Jesus armor. On the song Bicycle Race, there's the line where they're doing the back and forth call, and he says, you say Coke, I say Kane, you say John, I say Wayne, you say Lord, I say Christ, I don't believe in Peter Pan, Frankenstein, or Superman. And I was like, wait a minute. Peter Pan, Frankenstein, and Superman are all just characters in stories. How do I bridge this gap? And
this was
it was kind of one of the first, like,
Jesus Christ Superstar moment, huh?
Yeah. Wait. What is the difference?
Yeah.
And I do think that kind of sort of free thinking in the lyrics of these like non-religious pop groups was a huge problem. It wasn't the music. It wasn't the drums. We know it wasn't the drums and the guitars, because Christians today love drums and guitars and like 4-piece bands and light shows and all that. That's like a central part of religious worship today. But it was lyrics like, Pink Floyd's The Wall, or these songs where they would question about people's received wisdom. And that's what PMRC, I think, was really upset about, was that it caused people to question Christianity. The irony is that Prince was the thing that got it started with the lyrics to Darling Nikki. Like Tipper Gore just freaked out when she saw that. But Prince ended up like this really conservative Jehovah's Witness, and he wouldn't perform Darling Nikki in any of his concerts after he converted to JW. So
that's crazy.
He ended up buying the argument.
Yeah, but you look at that, it's like, I knew a girl named Nikki. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. Met her in a hotel lobby, masturbating in a magazine. I mean, that's family-friendly lyrics right there. Come on.
Hey.
What's the problem with that? You know?
The thing that I always found was it was always unclear to me exactly who was the person who was masturbating.
Yeah.
It's
what's interesting?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What's interesting is I think all of these lyrics, when people hear them, or even when they're like just seeing the boobies on the cover, there's the more they get exposure to it, the more there's this ideal of like, but how is this evil, right? How is this evil? How is this hurting anyone? And then there's just kind of this hand waving from the church, and this no, this is all evil. It's all of the devil. And the more you kind of question, like, I don't understand, like these. How's this hurting anyone, though? That becomes the problem with the church. That becomes the undermining of their authority and their authority to say what is right and wrong.
Yeah, that's what they didn't like. They didn't like the alternate power center. And again, to be honest, like if you guys were growing up then, rock and roll was way cooler than anything you were getting at church.
For sure. Like, no question
Ozzy
about
singing
that.
Crazy Train was 20 times more interesting to you than anybody reading something from Lamentations.
Oh, right. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I didn't go to church. I was raised non-religious. So I don't have the church like perspective. A lot of people who've come out of religion and are now in this community we call the atheist community, I guess. I mean, I don't know what to call it, but I'm like a cradle atheist. So I didn't come out of anything, I had nothing to come out of. So like this whole idea of demons and devils seemed like a joke when I was a kid. But reading all the comic books and the Pulp Fiction magazines and the D&D stuff, it also led me to religion. And as a kid, I began reading the Bible because of D&D.
So D&D could have potentially brought people to Jesus.
Exactly. It could have worked either way.
Wow.
I read the Bible because I was interested in gods, right? Because I was introduced to gods and demigods and all these other ethereal beings in D&D and other games. And I thought, well, what about this God? And it led me to the Bible, reading the Bible. I've read the Bible like 3 times sporadically, in the service I read it. But see, that's what I'm saying. It led to the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you see the progression? I mean, why, if I'm learning about demons and ghosts and goblins, and wouldn't that be the opposite thing there too? And it was. There was Jesus was in the game. Believe it or not.
I was led to the Bible more like a lamb to the slaughter. Like it was a very different relationship with me growing up. You couldn't escape the Bible pretty much.
But I never had I wasn't raised with a belief in anything like religious or gods. So it was, to me, I thought and when I read the Bible, it was like, boy, this will go great in the game.
Right.
This works. This works for the game,
Oh yeah.
They have an angel in one of the apocryphals in Tobit, and I can't think of the name of the damn angel that heals the eyes and all. He's like a healer angel. It's a guiding healer angel in Tophet or Tobit, but that's not canonical. But that could almost be a character easy that you could drop into the
exactly.
The
oh yeah.
You mean Raphael?
Raphael, that's him. That's the one.
Yeah, he'd be a cleric easily, a high-level cleric with healing spells.
He was a major character on Supernatural.
Was he? Yeah. I never watched that show. So
it's a lot of seasons to get through if you do start watching it.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Simos, what's up, man?
Hello. Good to see you all.
How's it going?
Yeah, you too.
Excellent.
You're not from the States, huh, Simos? Did that affect you as much, or did y'all have something of a satanic panic or a little bit of residue of it drifting over there?
I mean, I guess there was. I mean, this is the country that gave you Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when Ozzy first bit the head off a bat, we heard about it, even though that didn't actually happen.
Oh, the story.
Yeah, go ahead.
The story drifted from your shores to start with, because the one that kicked it off all here in the States was the Remember Michelle. Michelle remembers, and her story from her childhood was that there was the demonic church or the satanic church. Was it Britain? Or where was it located? Do you remember, Filbert? That she had the experience. It was from the old country, though.
I don't remember. It's been so long since I read that book.
Yeah.
The only Church of Satan I knew was the one in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's the first one I heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know of the one I can't remember what she said.
Well, it wasn't a real satanic church to start with. It was all made up. But the story is that from her childhood, that's where the first satanic cult was that she ran into, and that she was abused in, and that animals were sacrificed in was, I guess, in England or something. I can't remember myself.
Yeah, but you were right when you were seeing a parallel between QAnon and the Satanic Panic, because it's literally just an update. Like, I remember 70s and 80s, there was this thing that there was the Illuminati, and they were funding the scientific establishment, and they were funding these rock and roll bands, and that they had the Rothschild money behind them, and they were all part of the Church of Satan that was spreading through the Knights Templar and the Masonic lodges and the Rosicrucians these evil thoughts throughout society, and that they were like major corporate and business owners that would fund these horrific weekend rituals in Monterey or Carmel or somewhere.
Yeah, and it was the same thing. They were, drinking the blood of children and all this because of what was it? I can't remember what QAnon called it now, but it was basically the same thing. Like you said,
Yeah,
it's all repeated.
It goes back to the original blood libel, going back into the medieval era.
Yeah, it's supposed to make the adults younger, more youthful if they drink this. And yeah, what was that called? The purple substance thing, whatever that they're supposed to get from the kids.
Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome, yeah. There was another person who called it the purple. Who was that? Amon Hillman. He's saying that that's the same thing. It was the same drug that Jesus was taking when he was caught with the young boy in the garden, before his arrest. Crazy stuff. That guy is just fantastic, So crazy.
Well, one thing I will say is, in my youth, I mean, there was like Aleister Crowley in the 60s. Right, there was all this, like Jimmy Page bought Aleister Crowley's house in the 60s where they did some recordings and shit when the levee breaks and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the rock and roll evil connection, right? Satanic connection. But
a lot of links to Aleister Crowley, yeah.
Yeah, in the 70s there was a film called The Wicker Man made, where a whole village was part of a demonic cult, where they used to every year they would construct a giant like wicker basket, like man-shaped thing, and then burn it with people inside.
Yeah,
and that was the basis of the film.
What you said a moment ago, Kurt, made me think about this line that I saw inside of the report, the big conspiracy theory, which implies that it talks about the satanic groups being involved with Adolf Hitler, World War II, abortion, illegal drugs, pornography, Watergate, Iran Gate. And I couldn't help but think of Pizzagate whenever I read this, that all of these kind of big conspiracies, that they all push it off to there's this satanic cult, right? That is the underpinnings of everything, and that they're pulling the levers of it. And so this QAnon kind of conspiracy, this is what was already being identified from the investigations from the 80s by 1992. This is what was going on.
When was the because like some of this comes from the Illuminatus trilogy.
I don't know how much that is influenced, but this is from that 1992 report from the FBI agent.
Yeah, it's bollocks, isn't it?
So January 1992 is when this was put together.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, most of these things have been floating around for at least 2 decades before that, in terms of fiction. Right, the Illuminatus is a fiction book, and I can't remember, but that was based on something as well. That was based on a trilogy from the 60s. I'm trying to remember. It was a real classic at the time, but again, it was a psychedelic kind of trip down horror, and I think that's kind of where the ideas got into modern culture. But they had, of course, been around a long time. I mean, the Witchfinder General was a real post going back into late medieval time, right?
Yeah.
Burning witches was the real thing because people were so scared of Satan. So, I mean, this is all based in history, right? And the same thing happened in particular places in America, right?
Yeah, something I mentioned in a video I did about Martinsville.
Salem,
yeah, was that occurred exactly 300 years from the Salem witch trials. And I thought that was interesting to make that connection and compare the two. But yeah, like you said, it's just been all through history. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's the same fear, just packaged differently.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, you got to remember that religion was a dominating force, right? The authority of religion, if challenged, people felt was dangerous. Right, so you're not even talking about just like the fear of the devil. You're talking about this reactionary group of Christians, right, who feel that if anyone questions the priest's authority, they're probably in line with the devil and should be killed, right?
Yeah.
So I
and
mean,
remember, like
you know.
Protestantism had thought that the Catholics and Jewish people were both like servants of Satan for what, centuries
Infiltrated.
after by the mid 1960s and 70s. So
sure.
Oh,
Well,
going
yeah,
far
a
back
lot of
in
people
European
still,
history, 1300s probably.
a lot of people still equate atheism with devil worship for some reason.
Eat babies. I remember my baby sandwich I was eating earlier, man. It was so good.
Yeah, I don't know how that started. I think somebody found a source in a recipe book, and that they found out that we eat babies.
It's
Baby
out
back
now.
ribs. Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason.
You got to try it with honey mustard. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I may have eaten baby, but no one has told me that I have. No one really fessed up to it. So I may have eaten baby, not even knowing.
You, Dr. Evil, you can have your money, but give me your baby.
I'm
Come on now, you got to do the baby back.
Baby back.
I'm pretty sure I have eaten babies. I mean, I've eaten lamb, and that's God's baby, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what that gobble goo is at the deli. Yeah.
I don't
know.
Okay, crickets. There we go.
Mystery sauce.
Sausage. Who knows
but
what's in
I
sausage?
genuinely think that in the modern age, people use it as a form of shielding themselves from lazy minds, as Peter Singer would say, right? So lazy minds use this as a good excuse when they don't know what the truth is and they can't be bothered to try and find out. So they just go,
thought stopping.
Yeah, I don't have to think about this because I can just call it Satanism or the devil or whatever. And I think it's one of the more pernicious things about the Bible in general, and Jesus specifically, that he introduced this idea of hell being, being a place of torture.
Well, I think there's two uses of it, because first of all, this is how the average person might use it to disentangle complicated things and say, well, this is all you need is one devil as the enemy. And if you say whoever your political or your ideological enemy is associated with the devil, then this is an easy way to dismiss it, not think about politics, not think about consequences and all of this. But the other side of it is, for political propaganda purposes, people can use this as levers of power to manipulate others and say, I can't help but think of the gentleman that runs InfoWars saying how Hillary Clinton smelled like sulfur. The people tell me that you could smell the sulfur on her and the flies landed. And then there's this, we confirmation that she's of the devil and so forth.
But it goes to both sides. Like, remember Hugo Chavez when he spoke to the UN after George W. Bush and he said he could still smell the sulfur on the pulpit?
That's good stuff.
Yeah, well,
I did not know that one.
I also got that same feeling of manipulation when I listened to that Pam Bondi talking about them all getting together to pray in the Oval Office.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Right. And I just thought, my God, this is a step. Like, I've never seen any officials in the United States take it that far. I mean, yes, on the campaign trail, they all say they're Christian. Get it? I get that. But to say that this is what we do, this is how we know we're right, is because we pray in the Oval Office.
Simos, unfortunately, you don't know about the tradition of the national prayer breakfast that goes back to the Reagan administration. And each president has gone almost annually to this national prayer breakfast and talked about
it's not filmed, though, is it?
Wonderful being Jesus he is.
Well,
that's what boggles my mind with these Christian nationals who claim we're run by like these secular elites who aren't Christian. Like, no, not the case.
Well, last year when they started this faith office and put Paula White at the head of it, I mean, that told us everything we needed to know about the direction of this administration and this rise of Christian nationalism that we've seen with Doug Wilson and others. It's scary stuff.
But it's an increase. It's not a break with tradition. There's been hyper religiousness in government in both parties going back decades.
Yeah, no, like I'm not saying that they're not, like it's often said that you can't be president without being a Christian. So, or declaring that you're a Christian. What
Yeah.
boggles my mind is that for all the years, I mean, going back to the 80s, that I've heard about Donald Trump, I've never heard him say anything about
Me
Christianity
either. Not a single
until
thing.
he started fucking up in government.
Right.
Yeah, but he still doesn't know anything about Christianity. He literally,
Well,
I doubt he could
I didn't.
explain a single thing about Christianity.
Yeah, well, that
Yeah,
might
2
be the
Timothy.
case, but
Come on, he read from 2 Timothy.
No,
You
2
know.
Corinthians, you're missing his
2
whole-
Corinthians. Okay,
he
my
never,
bad. You're right.
never declared himself that. I mean, he
Well,
never
hell,
declared himself as a Christian.
but before he, became the Republican nominee, he supported abortion rights. He supported gay marriage, and there's documentation that you can still find the old videos, of
Yeah.
him talking about these things. And then he just did a complete 180 because the church gave him some great votes,
Yeah.
Well, it's the only way he was going to stay and get a second term, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and there's recordings also of him talking about splitting up the families, that we can't split up the families like this, when he's talking about kids and stuff and taking kids away. So that even that ideology, like he could bury it all, he could leave it all, abandon it all for his continuation in the political life.
It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Pernicious.
Well, he learned how to play the game. He learned how to play the game, and he's learned how to play it very, very well. And that the best way to play it is to pander to the largest group, pander to their fears, fully invest in their fears, that their fears are real, reconfirm their fears, that their fears are really serious and they're important, and that I'm the only one that can protect you against the enemy that is tantamount to the devil.
Another thing I've noticed, just as a casual bystander, not without any, is that every single president I've seen come and go in my lifetime has appreciably aged during their administration, especially those that have done 2 terms, especially Obama, right? He came in as a supple young man and ended up looking grey as hell.
Yeah, we've seen the pictures.
And it's the same. It's the same with all of them, right? I mean, Bush and Reagan, and they all looked twice their age when they left office, except Trump, who actually is older than probably most of those, and looks exactly the same age as the day that he took office, right?
Well,
so
I
I'm
don't
thinking
think
to
he looks
myself,
he's aged a lot.
What kind of damage has happened to him, right? I mean, how much longer can he go on, right? It can't be much longer, surely.
He's taking that adrenochrome.
Well, the baby stuff, is that right?
Yeah. One of the side effects is swollen ankles.
Oh dear, don't say that. My ankles are terribly swollen at the moment.
See, that just gives weight to the claims about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. 2 things to note from that, though. They have this image. I don't know if y'all have seen this, that they take the pigment from his eye where that you don't have the orange. They take the pigment from there and apply it to his whole face, and he looks like a dead zombie. He literally looks down. I don't know if y'all have seen the picture, but it takes like a little point of like a color sample from the area where it's not orange, and then it applies it to the orange, and he totally looks dead.
Wow. Yeah, something's going on there. Yeah, I mean, I saw some memes of something claiming to be his brain scan, showing that there was a lot. I have no idea, right? But
a lot of that's propaganda stuff too. I hate to invest into much of that.
Yeah,
with AI now, you just can't trust anything.
It would certainly explain a lot, though, wouldn't it? Some of these decisions that he's making. But there you go. I mean, Europe have had enough of it. I can tell you that. America had such, or Trump in general had such a good, after his first term, he had such a good image around the world because he didn't get involved in international politics much, and when he did, it was on the right side.
Yeah.
And all of that just shat out the window because now, 3/4 of Europe just go, right, well, fuck him. He's trying to ruin our country, that's like 6 or 7 major countries in Europe all going, nah, well, we've had enough. So
Yeah, but it's a trade-off that you get dictators, you get Putin, you get players like this that they love him. So, and you can make better backwater deals with them than you can with European nations. So
yeah, that's true. That is true. Although I would say that the market of Europe is bigger than the market of Russia. So
that's for sure. That
it
is for
is
sure.
certainly not for America's good that he's doing those trade deals.
No, I agree.
There's an interesting thing. I'm, as you know, I do Formula One, and the guy that used to own Formula One is the guy that introduced Putin and Trump together, right?
Really?
Oh yeah, had him on the yacht, on his yacht first together.
Interesting.
And basically knew how close they were. He said that they got on extremely well almost as soon as they met. And one of the reasons that they continued to get on very well. This is before he was president, the first time. But one of the reasons they got on so well is because Putin steered him to some good investments in Russia.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, Putin bought him before he was even president.
Yeah.
That was the implication of what this guy was saying. And this guy, like, I mean, he's a very, very wealthy person. Like, he owned Formula One, right? So, yeah. It's shocking, shall we say?
Well,
So,
you know
Kurt,
the
go ahead, I'm sorry.
seven. What is that? That Bacon thing, Kevin Bacon.
7 degrees
6
of
degrees
bacon.
or 7 degrees
6
of
degrees.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I bet I'm even connected to Epstein somehow.
Probably. He's very dug in.
You could be Epstein for all I know. I
Wait,
mean, you know, he's still alive, right? It could be you. It could be you.
I mean, if you've met Richard Dawkins, you're 1 degree.
Yeah,
Cut
there
the
you
street,
go.
Robert, quick. Just kidding. But you know this
Or
whole
if you've
like
met Lawrence
green-
Krauss, or I mean, there's a whole bunch of.
Don't say Lawrence Krauss.
Oh yeah, Steven Pinker was on the list as well.
Right.
As close friends.
Noam Chomsky.
Hey, the guy who owns the people who run Discord have ties with Epstein. I put an article in my own Discord about it. If you're a member of my Discord, you could have read it. You still can. It's still there.
Let me just. I want to make a disclaimer here. Right?
Yeah.
Take a moment to make a disclaimer.
Sorry.
But no, it's all good.
I digress.
Because what's happening is like everyone that's mentioned in a Epstein file at all is being thrown up without context and as if they're being demonized. And this happens a lot because when you don't get any context of the mentioning, or whether they were just on a flight of or never even landed on the island, but they're in the Epstein files. There's this association that says, oh, well, they have some kind of wicked or untoward behavior that is associated with them. And look, the man was a very major player, and he talked to some of the biggest brass that there was, and just having conversations or email correspondence doesn't mean that anyone was involved with anything illicit. I just think that people use that a lot to kind of maneuver propaganda sometimes. And sometimes we just fall victim to it ourselves.
Yeah, but I mean, there are like people like Krauss who are in bunches of pictures with him.
Okay.
And corresponded with him a lot.
Yeah.
Are they like buddy pictures?
There was
guilt by association. Is that what you're doing?
No, they are buddy pictures. I mean, I don't know. I am not making any allegations about any individual.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying that there's a level of being mentioned in an email, like, and that's it. And it's two people who don't include you talking about you. That's being in the files. That's one way. And then there's hanging out with them a lot, emailing back and forth with them a lot, and being in a bunch of pictures with them. Those are just different levels. Bill Clinton is in group 2, right?
Oh,
Bill Clinton is definitely like in there. But then
there's a group of people that were close to him, like personal friends for many, many years.
And is anybody in the UK buying that Andrew just had to tell him in person that he was cutting off ties because it wouldn't have felt right not to?
Of course not.
Come on, Silas. I don't believe that.
He's just trying to do the honourable thing because he's an honourable person, right? That was his excuse. But like, no, obviously not. I mean, we know I mean, we
and
knew
it took him
straight
what
away.
4 days to explain it all.
Yeah, no, there was the Emily Maitland, who's the person that did the interview. I mean, she just perfectly pulled it out. Like everything, all the subtext was there in that interview. So when he said, "Oh, I don't sweat," and then someone flashes up a photograph of him in a t-shirt sweating his bollocks off, on an island, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I mean, it's obvious, right? And also his Andrew's ex-wife. I mean, they've always been a pair of wrong-uns, those two, right from the beginning. So
She was not a singer in the Black Eyed Peas, as I'm told. Those are different people.
That is a different person. The princess. I can't remember where she was princess of, or maybe Duchess. She was a Duchess,
York?
wasn't she? York, Duchess of York. Yeah.
That's where Septimius Severus died.
But this is what's wrong with monarchies, right? I mean, that's why you guys got rid of it, presumably.
Well, it's also what's wrong with the idea that there's a natural scale of like quality of human beings, right?
Indeed.
And the idea that being somehow wealthy or powerful or highly educated is some protection that makes you above suspicion.
Well, I mean, it doesn't put you above suspicion. It definitely puts you above the law in some ways, right?
Unquestionably, right?
This is the problem with the Epstein files, right? Like
Which
someone said,
Europeans are taking it seriously.
I just noticed that, by the way, Naughty Filbert. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but he's
are you sure though?
For the
Are you
longest, he's
sure
not
though?
Epstein files.
It's been mentioned so much. I just wanted to make that clear,
Clear that up. For sure.
I don't know. I find the whole thing to be unsurprising, right? I mean, let's face it. You go back to, I don't know, the 60s, I guess, was when it first started coming to light when I first started hearing that it started was in the 60s, right? With all these care homes being taken over by the Catholic Church. Right. And actually it turned out in the 70s and 80s when the stories came to light that there had been abuse there since the 50s.
Yep.
And that lots and lots of these kids had been abused by
and it's in Ireland and it's in Canada and
all over.
It's all over the world.
Yeah. And so am I surprised? No, I'm not at all surprised that these rich men have carried on doing it in private. Right.
But here's the real rub of it. Like, there's no demonic symbology or anything anywhere around that. There's no people that are worshiping Satan or anything, and this happens. And now what law enforcement did all throughout the 80s and what people were doing was they were looking for something that were signs of this kind of thing, this Epstein kind of shit happening, and they were looking for all the wrong signs. They're just looking for all the wrong things.
They should have been looking for crucifixes and nuns.
Right.
Yeah.
I won't go that far. But this is the point. Like we try to simplify. You try to simplify something to say that this is what's evil, and you have law enforcement and you have mothers looking through their kids' bags for icons of or little
cards.
characters of Dungeons and Dragons or Pokemon cards, as if this is something that is indicative of this kind of behavior. And when you find a cabal of this kind of behavior, you see it's completely void of that. It has none of that whatsoever. Instead, it has wealth, it has influence, it has people that are trying to use their wealth and power and influence to bring people together, almost like a golf course kind of, yes, we're good old boys. And we have shared secrets that are going on inside of an enclosed area.
I mean, everybody's seen Eyes Wide Shut, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Eyes Wide Shut is based on a novel that was written, I think, in the 1920s. So what you now have to wonder is, like, was the novel written as something that was just like being done? If you have not seen Eyes Wide Shut and you're interested in this story, you should watch it now, because it's literally about a doctor who gets taken into this world of these really wealthy, really powerful people and asked to compromise his ethics.
Yeah,
and
you don't remember
Kubrick's
that?
last film.
Yeah, it was Stanley Kubrick. It had Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in it when they were still married.
Yeah, I remember the cast, just the two main characters. Didn't see the movie.
It split them up, and it destroyed Tom Cruise's career for a while, and it also killed Stanley Kubrick. So
literally, yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
Now I'll kind of have to watch this one, but I'll give you a warning that something that we're doing is very similar to what that was happening at the time. Is in the same way that we're seeing symbols or different things, and the parents were making associations to say that they were demonic, that they were evil, that they were in some kind of cultic practices. Now we're seeing, a name was inside of a file, and therefore the conclusion is all of this evil association because of some casual acquaintance. So we could be just as easily guilty of this guilt by association kind of fallacy as that entire generation of the 80s were. So if there's something that we should learn from this kind of thinking, it is to curtail our own biases and associations of symbologies and whatnot that says, otherwise, if we can't learn something from it, what did we get from it,
No, I absolutely agree with you. But I will say, if there's a guy who tells you that he only saw the guy once, and then he said he would never see him again, and then there's a mask of that guy, statue face on the wall in this weird sex room in Epstein's Island, and that the guy turns out to have visited the island when he said he never had, and then there's pictures of him on the island with no other women and children around when he says the only time he was on the island was women and children. Again, that's not to say that he's necessarily guilty, but it is to say that he lied for no apparent purpose, and certainly not to his benefit. And in another country, I think that might lead him to leaving office. But in our country, that leads to him just chuckling whenever the whole story gets brought up.
Yeah. I'll just point out as well, I think it was 1984 that in LA, in Epstein's house, the police attended or did a murder investigation to someone that was killed in Epstein's house. And there was some suspicious circumstances around who had been there. And I think it was a young girl that was killed.
Remember that with the Satanic Panic, they had nothing but the testimony of kids. These are documents, photos.
Yes, sure.
So I think that was
totally different evidence base.
I think that was 84. And although Epstein wasn't in the house or anything like that, he'd been lending it to somebody. Just to say, in the 80s, mid 80s, that's how far back people have been ignoring it. Right. And I'm pretty sure that it was a cover up as well. I'm pretty sure that the LAPD covered it up because of who was involved.
How could you have impugned the integrity of the 1980s LAPD?
There you go.
Speaking of, and Filbert mentioned earlier,
Daryl Gates, come on, man.
Filbert mentioned earlier that he does associate this kind of symbol, like Christian crosses and whatnot. I think that there was this ideology about the priest is why they did see them as these stewards of greatness, these stewards of representative of all things good of Christ in the minds of the masses, is why when they heard allegations from children that they were being abused by the priesthood, is that in this case, they were dismissed away. So we have in one case where you're prompting them into saying yes, that this was happening, and they're being associated with demonic symbology, and you're saying, oh yes, this definitely happened, tell me more about it. Whereas when they're being associated with kind of this Christology, and the child is saying actively without being prompted, no, I was touched, I was this, I was that. No, you can't be, because we have this icon of these priests wouldn't do that. Whereas these people over here, rock and rollers, if a rock and roller or something was made the same allegation, no ifs, ands, or buts, lock him up. He had to have done it. But the priest gets a shroud of protection that the cross gives him, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Hitchens said something about just because you put reverend, pastor, or priest or father in front of your name, that gives you some right to I can't remember the phrase he used, but gives you some credibility or status within the community, which you definitely don't deserve.
That was Hitchens, right?
Hitchens, yeah.
Yeah, Hitchens said something to that effect.
I remember
Has
that.
anybody ever seen Line of Duty, the UK series? So it's about anti-corruption unit in the UK who goes after this like mega elite like child trafficking ring. And there's like references to Jimmy Savile and like that whole scandal. And
Yeah.
it's like a great like multi-season storyline. If you haven't watched it, I do recommend it. It's a great show.
Yeah, of course, that was an open secret as well. I mean, him and Gary Glitter and quite a few others. But I don't think he was part of a ring. I mean, that's, he lived in poverty almost, gave most of his money away to charity to buy his status and get invited to all these places where kids were. And
No,
that's
it's not
one of the
specifically about him. They just make like
that's one of
oblique
the
references to him.
That's one of the differences that I've heard of, which is that when somebody is a paedophile, they will deliberately go out to put themselves in places where they can get access to kids, of course.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
like
the difference.
buying a Miss Teen Universe pageant or something.
Yeah, absolutely, I guess. But also, becoming like school janitor or, working in care homes or, teaching is a big one, of course, but also becoming priests, right? And one of the things they psychologically do is to form circles, right? So they become friends with other people that are pedophiles because nobody else wants to know them, of course.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is the kind of malevolent side behind it, which is
Yeah.
it's a lot more organized than just people think. People think, oh, you find a pedophile and that, oh, we've got him. That's it. We're done. Epstein is the guy. No, that's not how that works, right? So yes, it's the people that are close to Epstein are almost certainly going to be involved in some kind of criminal activity to do with children necessarily, and then you can go out circles and circles until you get to the outer guys that are just being bribed, etc. Like Fergie or whoever, right? And they're just there to entrap people to get them into the things so other people can get, so he can become super wealthy, right, and get clients for this banking group, etc. So there's a whole two sides of it. There's the actual internal side, right, of the people that are close to him and have been for years and years, right? There's a list of people that signed his birthday cards and attended a birthday party for him, right? And there's that list. I've seen that list, and people on it are like close friends. And you're telling me that they're not pedophiles?
Yeah, there's a
Because
line.
I don't believe that.
There's a line in Succession. I think it's in the first season where this one corporate guy who ends up like winning the succession war is introducing his like new lieutenant to like how the world works, and he says basically we have superpowers when we're really rich. It's just that instead of wearing capes, we wear Armani suits.
Yeah.
And he's like basically demonstrating all the stuff he can do and get away with.
Yeah. And Simos brought up something a while ago about, janitors and school teachers and things like that. That's the thing that you can't rely on our screening progress either, because it's, maybe these guys are okay as far as their screening went, but a lot of times it's just they haven't been caught yet,
Yeah.
So you don't really know,
Well, that's the thing with the churches.
Right.
Right. As I said, because they operate in groups. So once one gets into a position of power in a particular group, they can go to the others in the group and go, right, I'm going to employ you, or I'm going to give you a position here as well, until they've got backup. That's what makes Catholicism so bad, is because they internally had that going on for generations.
Right, but it's everywhere. It's the Jehovah's Witnesses, the LDS,
I'm not saying it's not.
The Southern Baptists, like all of these groups have had to pay massive settlements for the same sort of thing.
I'm not saying it's not, but what I'm saying is that, like, even going back to the 50s, right? That's the Catholic Church were covering up abuse by priests.
No, it's probably been going on for as long as the church has existed as an institution.
Probably.
There's no reason to think that it began in the 20th century or 19th century.
You've got all the ingredients, right? I mean, you have sexual oppression going on. You have, you have a group that sticks tight together, a group that is outside of the purview of external government that can kind of evaluate them and look at them closer. So you have all of the ingredients that are already present. So yeah, I would imagine that it goes all the way back.
Yeah, but in the early days of the church, they were the priests were allowed to have concubines. They weren't allowed to marry. They took a vow of celibacy, but they had concubines. I mean, watch the Borgias.
Yeah, but they they also had canon
Borgias are a
law
bit
where you couldn't bring a lawsuit or charge a member of the church with a crime who was part of the priesthood. They would have to go to a special church court.
Yeah,
but there were so many like different rules. I don't know what to call it. Like men could marry different women, and then they could, like, why are priests getting married? I never understood that. How is that a thing?
Yeah.
Well, it's been highly variable throughout Christian history what the rules were. There's an American Catholic Church that sees itself as Catholic but allows their priests to marry.
Mm-hmm.
I think the point I was kind of trying to make a bit badly, presumably, is that the Catholic Church, because it has a leader and a hierarchy which is absolute, right? The Pope's word is absolute in Catholic Church when it comes to writs anyway. They specifically had a department set up to cover these accusations because internally they were very well known, right? And by this time, I think, pedophile priests had become part of the establishment, right? And unlike other things like care homes and stuff, where I think people had a vested interest to like keep the name of the community going, etc. The Catholic Church also had that community thing, right, where anything but criticism of the church itself would be allowed because that was the sacrosanct thing, was the authority of the priest.
Well, and the offender has
that's the dangerous thing, right? Is the fact that these people were in positions of authority over communities. So quite often the mothers or the parents of the children being abused knew about it, but they let it go because to question the priest in your parish would tantamount to being excommunicated.
Yeah, the offender has loads of power because he has the power of the guilt of the child. If the child doesn't tell anybody, then he can tell the child that it was a sin and that it was the child's fault, and then cause the child not to tell anybody. He has the power of the ability to talk for an hour if he wants to everybody in the community every week. And then he has the power to embarrass the organization that he's a part of, such that he can say, well, I'll just come clean and say everything that's going on and how you guys did nothing about it for the last 2 years if you want. And they'll be like, no, we're not eager to do that. Why don't we send you to Topeka? And then it just all starts over again.
Yeah, they just shuffle them around and shit. Yeah.
That's why you got to have inside assassination groups to take care of these priests that won't talk.
Star chambers, yes.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea, but kind of.
There'd be one more thing in litigation when that gets found out. Eventually, all of these eggs get cracked and get brought up before courts. So, but the interesting, I think, takeaway from it is that it's so easy to demonize things that don't have any truly evil association that's not harming someone, because the church has traditionally created some character association of and says, therefore, because of this behavior, because of this symbology, these people are evil, these people are not trustworthy. They're the ones that can do evil to your children, to your community. Whereas this group of people that are representative of Christ, they can get away with murder because they're not on that same scale. They're not looked at with that same light, and they have a sense of prestige that has been bestowed upon them by the community simply for wearing the cross and walking the line of Christianity.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask?
Said the Catholic Church can get away with murder? Oh, I want some of that.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question. All right. Because we were talking about the satanic panic and everything. How much of the things that happened during that time were because they wanted a distraction to what was going on, these allegations that were coming out against the priest? Because that's about the time it really started to hit the media. about some of this. How much do you think was a distraction from that?
I don't know. I
mean,
think the
Or was
Protestant
meant
church
to
was
be a
pushing
distraction?
this more. I think the
yeah, it
Protestant
was
church was
definitely
the one
Protestant.
that primarily housed the conspiratorial thinkers that were pushing this. I don't think it was so much Catholic. So I don't think there's a direct correlation there.
I mean, there was a time in the late 80s where there'd be a new celebrity come out with their allegations of their own personal childhood satanic ritual abuse just about every week or two, and go on Oprah and tell the whole story about it. And Oprah would be like, oh, wow. Oprah was the Joe Rogan before there was a Joe Rogan.
But with the Catholic Church, I mean, these were the people that were doing exorcisms and talking about spiritual warfare in those matters. They really did open up the door to a lot of this, whether it's the Protestants or not. I'm just saying, yet you're right about that, but a lot of it was influenced by those kinds of teachings.
Oh, for sure. I just don't know that there was anything directly that you could say that there was something that was put forward. And I'd be happy to be proven wrong on it, that was put forward by the Catholic Church, that was something of a distraction to let this explode inside of the media rather than something that was being brought up about them and allegations of them.
Yeah, I would say that that's the more, shall we say, empirical reason for it, in that the priests that were doing this were probably quite bad people to start with, and that in fact that they were discrediting victims more than they're trying to actually think that some, and like the gullibility. Right, 50% of people are fucking dumber than the average person, right? So, literally, facts, yeah. So, I genuinely think that it's easier to manipulate people into believing that the devil is doing all of this harm, rather than trying to explain it in some kind of reasoned way, which is psychological.
Yeah, that's what we were saying earlier, because it was all about
Right.
control through fear.
Yeah.
If you don't do this, you're going to hell. If you listen to this music, demons are going to enter your children. Things like that. It's
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
If you don't sell me Greenland, well, I'm going to invade.
Right.
Well, funny, when I joined the service and was going through boot camp, they asked us about what, everyone was in the line and they'd come up to us in our shorts and getting our hair shaved and we're getting our dog tags, and they asked us what religion you want to subscribe to put on the dog tags. You have 3 choices. There was Protestant, Catholic, and no preference.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, you're kind of forced to pick either one or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I picked nothing, no preference. And the guy's like, it wasn't a guy, it was a girl actually. And she just like balked and said, oh, we have a devil worshiper over here, everybody.
There you go.
What the fuck just happened here?
Yeah. Well,
there's an old joke on in Ireland, right, where this is going back to the troubles between the Catholics and the Protestants, but someone's driving along a country lane and they get stopped by 3 gunmen, and the guy gets out his, they threaten to point the guns at him in the car and say, okay, so what are you? You're Catholic or you're Protestant? And he goes, well, actually, I'm Jewish. And he says, are you Catholic Jewish or are you Protestant?
I remember this. This is so great. That's amazing.
Excellent example.
Well,
either or, right? Either or.
Yeah, you can choose one, but you got to choose one.
Well, at least they gave me the choice of none or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We'll be wrapping it up. We're going to end off on Philbert. Gio, what's your thoughts on all this and the satanic panic?
Well, for me, it seems to it's still there. It's not called satanic panic. I don't know what they're naming it now because I'm not into that, but it's just shifted, it seems, onto something different.
Yeah, I agree. QAnon is what Philbert said. I think that's about it. It's conspiratorial thinking for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Simos?
Well, I mean, I just, what are they covering? That's
What do you
it.
mean?
Dig deeper, because it means they're covering something.
Yeah.
Someone is
Yeah.
covering something, and that's why they're trying to get you to believe it in Satan, or
Yeah.
trying to blame it on Satan, because there's really somebody else at blame, and whatever it is they're covering up, you need to know about it.
Yeah. Kurt?
Well, just to get to the Gen X thing, like the other thing that people who may not have lived during that time forget is that we Gen Xers grew up thinking the world was going to end very soon because of nuclear war. And we were genuinely told it was a real live possibility, and we did drills for it, and our houses had bomb shelters, some of them. And like the idea that the world itself was going to continue was like a live option. So that created a huge amount of anxiety, and these types of like economic and like social anxieties do lead to these sorts of panics fairly reliably. So I think part of it was just this sort of generalized fear that the things that were going on weren't necessarily working out.
Yeah. And I'll give a word on it, and then I'll actually let you have the final on it completely, Phil. I think that people have this psychology of right and wrong are the two dualities, and that they tend to categorize everything as X and Y, so to speak. And they try to think of everything as either good or bad, light or darkness. And they even do it inside a category. This is probably why we have the dual system of Democrat and Republic, while one sees themselves as good and the other one as bad. This is why we have ideologies of that there is only male and female, and that this is the totality of things, to try to keep everything simple, that there's this and that there's that. And they try to use this to simplify it, and it's causing a lot of confusion because we don't look at things deeper and understand what the real problems are. It was never about demons or devil worship. People just want to say good, evil, Jesus, devil, and that's a wrap. But it's obviously far more complex than that. Filbert, go ahead.
I guess the main thing is like we were talking about a while ago. It was all about control through fear. It was about, you couldn't have fun. You couldn't use your imagination. All these things were evil. Evil came from that. If you thought for yourself and questioned that authority, then you were obviously, under the influence of something demonic, because you weren't supposed to do those things. And everything from the music we listened to the books we read, the movies we watched, whatever, they were influencing us because they were telling you, no, don't just let them feed you this bullshit. Question it. Talk about it. It's okay to have these doubts. And I think we were the first generation of the 20th century anyway that did start to ask those questions and things. I remember my mom's generation was referred to as the silent generation, because they didn't ask questions about anything. But when you grow up in an era where you're taught that critical thinking is evil and that Satan is around every corner, it does something to you. And then when you start to experiment a little bit and notice that nothing happens, then you go through all these fake rapture predictions. You go through all the listening to your music backwards, everything, and nothing's happening. Then you're like, I've been lied to. And I think this plays a big role in why so many Gen Xers, as they got older, just stopped going, just stopped showing up. Because that's what we do. We don't raise a big fuss or a scandal. We just stop showing up. And I think that's the reason why we were tired of being lied to and tired of being told not to ask questions about it.
Absolutely. Just want to say one quick.
If I may
hold on.
just say this quickly, which is, I just want to say, if you listen to Stairway to Heaven backwards, you hear right just before the drums kick in, you hear, "Don't be an idiot. Stop listening to things backwards."
And you never needed to listen to Stairway to Heaven backwards anyway. You could just listen to AC/DC's Hell's Bells forward.
Yeah, there you go.
Fair enough.
Last announcement on here. Whoops, I zoomed the wrong one up here. I did want to let y'all know that we're going to have tomorrow. We're going to be having a talk about identity and the the teleporter paradox. This is something that Hizzle and me have talked about a lot, Phantom and a few others, and we really want to hash this out and get it out in the open. It's going to be open chat the whole way, so everyone's invited to come in and give your thoughts on the teleporter paradox and what the self is. That having been said, I thank everyone for joining. People inside of the chat here, please hang out for a minute. I'll be right back with you. But thank you everyone for joining, and until next time.